Okay, Halida. Good morning to you all. Thank you for registering in this webinar and welcome everybody. This is the third webinar series on CSO role and its sustainability in the new normal age, where this time we picked the theme to discuss is children as a vulnerable group in the middle of conflict and domestic violence in COVID-19 pandemic situation. This webinar series is organized by Humanitarian Forum Indonesia, Human Initiative, Asian Disaster Reduction and Response Network, and International Council on Voluntary Agencies. And this time we will also have support from Save the Children Indonesia, Plan International, Asia Pacific region, HAMI, and then ALLOHA from Afghanistan. So we are welcome you all in this webinar, and we hope to have a productive discussion with you regarding the topic that we are having right now. So for the briefing, if you are very new to Zoom webinar, at the bottom of your Zoom, you will see two different menu, which are chat. So chat is used for informal communication. So you can say hi. I see Suhaila. Suhaila Nuri from Afghanistan already say hi to everyone. So please do so. And you can choose whether you want to speak to all panelists or to both panelists and attendees, or to whom you want to speak privately. And then also, please do not use the chat for submitting your questions, because there will be another room for that. At the left of your chat, you can see Q&A, and please submit your questions there. You can submit your question and it will be popping up in the open tab, and then the moderator or the speakers can see your question and answer. And if your question already answered, it will move out to the answer tab. So please be reminded for that. And please also to address whom your question you would like to submit it to, because we have three speakers here, or maybe to the other panelists as well, if you already familiar with one of us in the panelists or the organizer room. We will also get help from the sign interpreters. There are two sign interpreters here that will be helping us for those of you who need sign language. So thank you, Mbak Yulina and Mbak Mada. They are under the name Juru Bahasa Isyarat. It is in Bahasa Indonesia language. So for those of you who need the sign language, please pin their videos, so it will be helpful for you to understand the content and the discussion. And we will also stream this webinar on YouTube, YouTube Humanitarian Forum Indonesia and ICFA Network. Please connect there if you want to get the replay. If somehow you lost the connection and then you want to watch again the webinar, please visit both of the website, both of the YouTube sites of Humanitarian Forum Indonesia and ICFA Network. And you can also see Facebook of ADRN and Human Initiative. Our webinar will be also streamed there. So yeah, let's start this webinar, and I hope we have a productive discussion during these 2 hours webinar and exchange information from the region, particularly in the Asia Pacific region. And to start this webinar, please permit me as the representative of the organizers to welcome you all and call on the Pak Tommy Hendrajati as President of Human Initiative, also part of this organizer, to deliver his opening remarks. Pak Tommy, the time is yours.
Thank you, dear. Very good afternoon for the speakers, moderator, partners, and participants. We are pleased to have this webinar. It is the 3rd series of webinar, which is a joint collaboration between International Council of Voluntary Agencies ICFA, Human Initiative, Humanitarian Forum Indonesia, and ASEAN Disaster Reduction Network, supported by the Save the Children Indonesia, Plan International, HAMI, and ALLOHA. Talking about the children, always interesting because they have their own work full with the smiling, laughing, and also they can express their imagination and activities borderless. Unfortunately, the situation is totally different when we meet them in the different situation, for example, in disaster area or in the conflict area. So we feel that they have no future, they have no hope. So children is one of the vulnerable groups during armed or conflict communal, and then disaster event and outbreak disease such as COVID-19 pandemic. Currently, children are impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Well, impacted socially, physically, mentally, and emotional development. This impact will threaten the level of their welfare. UNICEF reporting on July 2020, nearly 1.19 billion students in 150 countries affected by the school closures. 2.1 billion people still lack access of safe water at home, and also increasing number of the domestic violence of children during the COVID-19 pandemic. On the other hand, with the ongoing pandemic, a lot of assistance for the children has decreased and even disappeared, which has affected millions of other children. Adjustment strategies and efforts to increase assistance specifically for the children in each conflict area and refugee camp are needed. So the situation become worse when we get the multiple disaster in one place, such as COVID-19 pandemic and natural disaster, as is the case in the Asia Pacific region. So to find out the solution and effective way to tackle the situations or these challenges, we should make collaboration among humanitarian actors. At least we can exchange experience, learning, also and ideas. From that, we can do shortcut of assistance in better way and also to reduce the impact. So collaborative actions is very important now. As a humanitarian actor, Human Initiative is taking benefit from that strategy. Collaborative action is mandatory in our organization. And also the child protection is one of the pillars of our main program in our organization. So it is time for us to get input from diverse perspective, from the different organizations, from the different countries in the region on child protection issues. We are very lucky today because to have very smart moderator, Mr. Rembet, my mentor in humanitarian, and also valuable speakers, Ms. Vanda, Ms. Samira, and Ms. Fatime, who have rich experience in the field. We hope we can enjoy these webinars, and don't hesitate to exchange your experience, your ideas, because it is very important for us today. Last but not least, thank you so much for the partners and all parties who support these webinars. Do not miss the next agenda in October and November. Thank you and see you again. Thanks deliver to you, Day.
Thank you, Pak Tommy, for your remarks. So I quoted a bit of your sentence, your statement that collaboration is the key for humanitarian actors to cope with the situation towards the children at the case of domestic violence and conflict during this pandemic situation. So thank you for your notes. Please stay with us at the end of the webinar so you can also join to the discussion as well. Thank you, Pak Tommy. Next, I would like to call on Ching Rui Huang from ICFA as the acting regional representative of ICFA for Asia and the Pacific region to also deliver her remarks and welcome everybody in this webinar. Tingri, the time is yours.
Thank you very much, dear, and a very good day to everyone who joined from different parts of the region and beyond. A good day to my peer colleagues as well, panelists, co-organizers here. So my name is Ching Rui, and I am the acting regional representative for ICFA, which is short for International Council of Voluntary Agencies. We are a global network for humanitarian NGOs across different regions. And also as a co-organizers for this webinar series, along with our colleagues from ADRN, Asia Disaster Response and Reduction Network, HFMI, Humanitarian Forum Indonesia, as well as Human Initiative based out in Indonesia as well. So actually, part of our mandates as a global network is to help our members and also more broadly NGOs in humanitarian sector to understand and to communicate with each other, to learn with each other, and also to connect with other key stakeholders in the humanitarian sector, including, for example, UN and donors and much more. So before the pandemic, actually, during previous humanitarian response, large part of the work was really focused on connecting NGOs with with UN sector, with other INGOs, to understand for example the guidelines for certain work, including for example guidelines for child protection, for disability population and beyond. But since the pandemic, we have really observed that the communication and also experience sharing has largely taken place between the NGOs themselves, and for the very visible reason that in almost all the cases, the traditional pattern of international surge to help humanitarian response just simply doesn't work in a pandemic situation. It really gives us a very big opportunities and also very good platform for for more local led NGOs and national NGOs and national NGO networks to learn to deal with difficult situations and therefore come up with their own solutions and experiences. And therefore this webinar series is really made for that, to to help NGOs in this region, more local-led NGOs, to exchange their experiences. So since August, as Tommy has mentioned in his remarks, we have organized 2 webinars, and this is the 3rd one. So the first one, we really focused on the broader challenges and also opportunities for NGOs in the pandemic, and then also post-pandemic in the new normal situation. The second one, we narrowed down a little bit to talk about more operational and management issues, and also resolutions to that for NGOs during the pandemic. And the third one, we decided to further narrow down the theme to focus on children protection issues, simply because we think this is really key important issues during pandemic, which really deserves a close look at, and deserve a exchange between different NGOs in the regions. Tommy has give a very good introduction in terms of how severe the situation is. Therefore, I would not repeat, but I want to simply add that during the pandemic, what is also more challenging for the children themselves, for the NGOs who support them, is that we also face, especially in Asia region, double disasters. For example, a earthquake hit, or a flood, or other issues that facing on top of the pandemic situations. So today we really have 4 great people, including Victor as the moderator, along with 3 great panelists from very difficult situations, mostly in conflict situations, to talk about issues to all the participants in the webinar. And I also hope that many of you could continue your engagement with us in the forthcoming webinars as well. So I'll stop here. Thank you very much again for joining today. I'll pass the floor back to Dear. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chingri, for your opening remarks. And I think by your remark, we are also introduced to the content of this discussion on how the situation, along with the theme that we are bringing right now. To get also more information on that, we also have one video that we would like to play and to share with you. Please, my colleague from Human Initiative to start the video, and after that, we can pass on to Pak Victor.
This is a time of increased stress and increased risk for violence in the home. There's good reasons to think that emotions like anger can be dangerous for kids to be around. Kids really thrive in routine, and the pandemic is dramatically changing for being harmed.
That is the short video that you have watched. So I will pass on this discussion to Save the Children Indonesia. He will lead us into the topic that we are bringing today with the 3 other panelists. So hopefully we can have more productive session. So I hand over to you, Pak Victor, and the other 3 panelists. The time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Dear. And for sure, it's such a good remarks from Mas Tommy and also Kingri from giving us a background or perspective of what we are going to discuss this afternoon. In Indonesia time, this is a very difficult and challenging time because this is after lunch. People are getting sleepy, and then of course could get away from this discussion easily. But the topic is very needed at this moment because we're talking about pandemic situation. We realize that this is not an easy situation. And we also realized that looking at the short video clips that we just watched, children are stressed out. And also based on our organization, at least Save the Children International, we realized that at least this last decades, about 260 million children are out of schools. Many more will happen during this pandemic. And then 168 million children are involved in child labor. And well, the most, I think the saddest thing is nearly 28 million children have been forced to flee their homes. 11 million are refugees and asylum seekers, and 17 million are internally displaced people. And even so, we're talking about more than 75,000 boys and girls under the age of 20 were murdered, and many more violence happening to the children. And therefore, this is something, the discussion that we would like to really get in touch with our reality as to provide safe havens for children anywhere, everywhere. And of course, we are going to learn this from at least 3 ladies who are great ones. And of course, we will learn from them because they have their own expertise, skills, experience that will help us understanding the topic much better, for sure. The first one, I'm so happy to introduce Fanda Lengkong. Fanda has been a long time colleague in humanitarian sectors in Indonesia, but now she is serving as a Plan International regional person that will provide us with the view of regional on how this topic could be discussed in that perspective. And the second one, we are so glad to have Ms. Fatemeh Asrawi, founder and head of trustees of HAMS, Association of Protections of Refugee Women and Children from Iran. Thank you so much for joining this. We are looking forward to hearing about your country and especially your work, and then well, mainly to focus on this topic of children and violence, especially in the pandemic era. And the third one, Samira Nori, the founding members of Asian Local Leaders Organization for Humanitarian AIDS, ALLOHA. This is a very nice wording of abbreviation. Sounds like a Hawaiian word, ALLOHA, which means that you are thinking about bringing the joy despite all the conflict situations and all the difficulties that your nations and your people in Afghanistan is still facing up till now. So without further ado, as we already had the background from Tommy and Kingwei, and also the short video clips, I would like to first of all discuss and asking Ms. Fanda, what is violence to children, especially when we are talking about our discussion? Could you provide us a background, because you are from the regional perspective? You could at least provide us a big pictures of what is violence in terms of children. Please, Ms. Fanda.
Thank you so much, Pak Victor, and hi everyone. Again, a very good morning as well as good afternoon to everybody. My name is Fanda Lengkong. As Pak Victor already mentioned, I'm currently the Head Disaster Risk Management for Plan International Asia Pacific based in Jakarta, and I'm Indonesian. So selamat siang untuk semua yang orang Indonesia list, which is I think it is asking what is violence against children. I think in terms of the definition, we basically familiar with it, and maybe we hear it, we read, or perhaps we the one who try to kind of like really advocate to reduce the violence against children in our neighborhood, in our family, as well as in our community. By definition, Pak Victor, it's basically include all forms of violence against people under 18. And it could be, perpetrated by parents or other caregiver, peers, romantic partners, or even stranger. So sometimes we think that people closer to the children will be not able to do or become a perpetrator for violence against children. That's wrong, because sometimes most of the case is basically coming from the person that closer to the children. So by definition, according to the United Nations Convention on the Right of the Child, as well as also other definition, WHO, UNICEF, and other agency, it could be formed at four main subcategory, Pak Victor. It's related with physical violence and abuse, mental and emotional violence and abuse, sexual violence and abuse and exploitation, which I think recently become more intense with this COVID-19, and neglect. And there is a key things that we need to making sure and need to be aware of. It can occur in many settings. It could be happen at home, school, community, and even over the internet. I would like to basically mention that, the violence against children is not only happening in emergency situation. It's basically worsening in emergency context. Because in normal situation, we already facing this, as what you mentioned already, the data, some in your remarks. UNICEF data, like in Ebola crisis back in 2014, 2016, it basically, because of the crisis, it spiked child labor, neglect, sexual abuse, teenage pregnancy, and even like double 14,000 times in Sierra Leone. So what happened with COVID-19? I don't want to kind of like just talking theory. So I putting here in the front of you, if you can able to see my screen, there is a one voice, one comment from a girl who from Vietnam. What she basically tell us in our document, hear it from the girls when we start doing the survey. She said that during the pandemic, at least he know there are two girls gotten married because of the pandemic. And why? Because they would like to release the new economic hardship of the parents. So this could be also include into the mental and emotional abuse by the children, because they might not ready, and it could be lead to teenage pregnancy and etc. So the next few slides, just to sharing some concrete example on the main key component that I already shared before. Violence online, and this is something that now become very crucial that we need to take into consideration. In the Philippines, there are some data that the government recorded 4 times as many online abuse from March 1st to 24th of May from the period of last year because of the pandemic and people stay at home. Parents cannot able to really look after and provide protection to the children, because maybe some parents they don't really know about internet or be familiar with internet. What about at home? And this has become something that sometimes we think that we are not doing violence, but we basically do. Yesterday, when I prepared this presentation, there is this viral video. I'm not sure whether Indonesian colleagues saw that. There is one mother trying to kind of like helping the children for study online, but she make it live online on Facebook. And then she basically like beaten the child to making sure that the child able to understand how to mention about the Pancasila in the front of the video. And again, domestic violence, I mentioned some data here in India. You can able to see the number, how increased the child helpline in India when they receive the call about abuse and violence, and 30% is basically related to children. Physical humiliating punishment, lack of access to safe space, because children now study from home. And this is something, another one that concrete example, mental health and well-being. So there are a lot of like children, especially girls, issue of depression, anxiety, well-being, as we already see also on the video that been shared before. So, I mean, we are not just talking about, the fact that surrounding us, but globally, this has become an issue. These are some of the example of the number statistic in addition to what Pak Victor already mentioned. I think Chingrui also mentioned a little bit, and Pak Tommy. So WHO released a document in June 2020, estimated that 1 billion children aged 2 to 17 years old experience physical, sexual, and emotional violence and neglection in the past year. And since the COVID-19, it could be increased. And again, the violence against girls and women, particularly on domestic violence, has intensified. I will not go through in detail, but just to really show you, these are some statistics that really give us some concrete consideration why we need to think through and be mindful about child protection, as well as how to address violence against children. I'm ending this just by also putting here a comment from Suci, is a young girl from Kediri village in Indonesia. What she's basically said that many children struggle at home, and it's basically mentioned about the 4 subcategory what is violence is all about: stress, exploitation, domestic violence, child marriage, difficult study at home, burden, and again it's talk about gender inequality when we are dealing with violence against children. I'll stop there, Pak Victor.
All right. Wow. It really is a challenging time for us, especially for children. Thank you so much for your explanation. It is, we are, I mean, not just organizations who deals with child protection and child right, but every one of us, having been exposed with this information and data by Fanda, we realize that things are not easy at this point. Well, thank you for the last one. It says something from a child in Kediri area, which is, we probably thought that this is not going to happen in a peaceful area. I'm now in Kediri actually, but it seems like everything peaceful, but it is not really is. And then of course from other areas we would like to hear. So that's why at this point of our discussion, we would like to hear from, first of all, from Fatima Asrafi from Iran case. How big has been the increase in violence against children after the COVID-19 pandemic? We already know, we already spotted some area. There are already some data, but this is the questions that really hits to your area. How big has been the increase in violence against children after the COVID-19 pandemic? Fatima, you could start and explaining about this, and then after that, Samira from Afghanistan, you could add on or sharing a different experience from your side. Please do. Fatima, you have to unmute first.
Good afternoon.
Yeah. Good afternoon. Yeah.
Good afternoon. Yeah, good afternoon for all of my colleagues from international NGOs and local NGOs, UN agencies, and other stakeholders that participated in this conference. I'm really pleased to have this opportunity today to present our experiences in Iran with HAMI through the pandemic, and for all of you. As you know, Iran is one of the biggest country who hosted for millions of Afghans and Iraqis refugees, around 4 millions Afghans here, that unfortunately, regarding to Afghanistan situation, fragile and unsecure Afghanistan situation, this number is increased every day. Just as a quick starting, I like to mention to some information about our situation and some facts about population of Afghanis refugees and asylum seeker, and particularly undocumented people. As I mentioned earlier, the number of Afghan population in Iran between 3.5 to 4 millions, and in sometimes maybe more. 1.5 millions of refugees and asylums, and more than 2 millions are undocumented people. The rate of fertility in Afghan community is high, between 4.7 to 5.2. More than 53% of the Afghan population is under 15. About 500,000 of Afghan students are studying in public school, including 150,000 undocumented children. It is a very good opportunity to find safe area for all children, including documented and undocumented. It is very important to mention most of jobs that most refugees are employed is unskilled jobs, such as simple services, construction, landscape, and agriculture. When COVID-19 beginning in February at home, one of the largest host city for Afghan and Iraqi refugees, we have been facing a series crises such as economic collapse, and local restriction led to higher rate of unemployment in the month following lockdown. It has led to decline or lose of income, especially for undocumented migrants and asylums, and people do not have job insurance and permanent employment support. That unfortunately, majority of this level societies are Afghanis people because of undocumented people and fragile economic situation. About in this regard, we have been starting all of our centers in provinces were open despite of the risk of the pandemic and closure of public school. For all of our students and clients to follow their study through online education activities, as well as their situation at home. Because unfortunately we received lots of reports to from families how the pandemic affected within the family in to raise domestic violence against women and children. Beside of our activities,
but could you be more focused on violence against children after all the background? What happened with the children after the increase in violence against children?
Little by little, I wanted to the first concentrate to the societies talked about the violence against children, because as you know, when families facing with economic collapse, all of the aspects of their relation which affected from this situation. And unfortunately, we received lots of reports how this situation affected within the family. And in other side, we received official and unofficial reports from governmental and national NGOs that huge children smuggling from Afghanistan to Iran, because unfortunately COVID-19 more than affected to Iran, affected in Afghanistan with fragile situation and unsecure economic and social situation. Negotiation with government and public organization that how we can support this kind of children. It was very important for us, as well as right now it's very important for us to cover and protect and recognize this kind of children that trafficking from Afghanistan to Iran.
Okay. All right.
And
yes.
sorry?
So could you explain what is the typical or the most violence happening to the children in your area, because of the refugees or what?
We are mostly working with refugees communities, and
Okay.
and of course our
Because of the
reported
trafficking you mentioned, yeah. You mentioned of the trafficking.
Trafficking and beating, and in some cases families push their children go to street for work. Recently we received an official report which knows more than 85% of child street and child laborers are coming from the Afghanis community.
Okay.
And you know, living or working at the street is one of the dangerous situation for children, and make them as
Vulnerable.
the violent social violence against children.
Okay, thank you, Fatima. We need to move to Samira to provide her perspective from Afghanistan. At least we already heard from you that the escalations of violence, both inside in their home or outside on the streets, are happening to children when you try to really focus to help them. Okay. We would like to hear from Samira at the moment. Your perspective on your area on these escalations of children and how they are exposed. Please do.
Thank you, Victor, and thank you all the panelists, and thank you, Vinda, for a good presentation that share every issues that more of the challenges is really same in Afghanistan, like violence against children increase. The same in Afghanistan, as already Afghanistan was impacted by the mounting political and insecurity already hit, and before pandemic, while during the pandemic, Afghanistan hit hardly by this, and even the half of the population was under the poverty line. When the pandemic happened and occurred, the poverty line increased more of that. And as mentioned by Wanda, that most of the violence against children in Afghanistan, that we had a survey, and most of the survey showed that the child marriage increased in Afghanistan. child labor, like most of the parents that they do not like their fathers were mostly relied on the daily wages, and they worked for daily, and then they send their children for working on street to receive money. But unfortunately, when they couldn't provide enough food for their children, so they try to sold out their livestock, and after when they just sold their livestock and finished the money, and then they start to sold out their asset. And these things like made the children to be more in trauma, to be more in need of psychosocial support. And after that closure of these schools, as already we had 3.7 million children out of school, and after closure of these schools, more than 10 million children lost access to education, and like 1.2 million children already working even before pandemic, and after pandemic that number increased. Child marriage increased, and even more the women and girls were more impacted by this, because as child marriage was already there in place, and this pandemic made them the family to increase these challenges of the child marriage of the girls. And most of the out of children that we have, like 3.7 million, 60% of them are girls, and girls children are more vulnerable. And from other side, as Ms. Fatma said, that children are beaten by their families. When the situation, the economic situation get critical, then definitely the physical violence also increased, mostly in remote area that they do not have any access to education, they do not have any information, they do not have any information on the child rights. So these all things increased. What we as a partner, like local organization, did that most of the organization from the child protection, education, WASH, these all partners together with other international communities try to support the ministries, like Ministry of Education, to provide the education during the pandemic. That as I am managing the education emergency program, so we did support the Ministry of Education to develop a learning material that we could provide the children with some learning material to be busy with that, to be not much in trauma. From other side, we also develop the tour that how we can put the community mobilizer, teachers, and as well as the officers that they are in field for the children through mobile phone. Like community mobilizer already aware about the awareness of the COVID-19, that how can you suggest or give information, pass the information to the teachers through mobile phone. And then the teachers, as we have most of the community or CB class, the teachers have contact with students. So they contacted the parents, even we just shared the information of the COVID-19 aware masjid speaker, loudspeaker. And then if there was any case that had any symptoms of COVID-19, then we refer that to nearby. Most of the areas we do not have any nearby clinic, then we just connected them with the doctors to provide the information. So these are the things that we have done during this pandemic, even though that already there was challenges of the violence against children, and after pandemic, these all challenges increase. These all violence increase, whether it's a child marriage, child labor, or out of school children. They were in psychosocial need of psychosocial support and child protection. So there was already in place, and after the pandemic, that these all increase. And as we have returnees from Iran, from Pakistan, and as well as we have IDPs, and we are working with them, and we are working in remote area. In remote area, there's it's a place that they have no access to the basic rights, to the basic services.
Okay,
So these
Samira.
are the challenges that happen here.
Yeah, thank you for at least emphasis on it's similar with Fatima that because of the economic stress, it creates something. The fathers brings home the violence because of not seeing a hope on economics in your area, and then the children are the vulnerables. The similar one with Fatima, children are the most vulnerable, and even the violence is increased, and more so, it's so sad that 60% are girls, and children are being even well to the forced marriage is one of the quote unquote solutions of the parents to release from the economic stress. Well, thank you so much for that, and also thank you for Fatima from each perspective on the place that you work with. And Fanda, would you like to confirm or affirm that this problem happened elsewhere because of economic situation, parents are so stressed out, and domestic violence is increasing, and more so, children are on the streets, and also something that we just raised in the UN General Assembly. Some children, some girls are saying out loud that they don't want to get married as child marriage. Could you confirm and affirm that, Fanda, in the regional from regional perspective?
Thank you, Pak Victor. So I basically mentioned some data, no, in my presentation before, and this is not just because something that data that we got from without clear sources. We do survey, we do research. Recently, Plan International and Save the Children at the regional level at the Asia Pacific, we released this because we made the thematic brief that we are trying to kind of targeting the government, no, ASEAN and SARC on really putting children, child protection at the center of the COVID-19 response. And yes, you mentioned about the disruption, one of the impact to relate to child marriage, which is Samira mentioned, Fatima also mentioned. I mean, there is a prediction that 13 million child marriage worldwide between 2020 and 20. Mentioned also by the two other colleagues that what happened with the violence against children, one of the reason the behind is because of the protection system is disrupted. With the COVID-19, with the lockdown, with the large scale of restriction of movement, and suddenly the children have to be at home, right? Usually they spend how many % of their time in school? So yes, as been shown in the video, and now they should to be study from home, and sometimes the parents, caregiver, they didn't intention to do violence to the children, but they also overwhelmed. So there is kind of like domino effect about all this kind of like why the violence against children is happening. Another example, Pak Victor, how many times children spend online? Yes, they're using it for learning, no, for study. But then how many hours that the parents going to take care and look and sitting with them, no? So we don't know that they might dealing with bullying online, cyber bullying. No offense to the boys. Yes, some of the boys also in certain contexts been requested to do so, but usually the first chosen one is the girls. Myanmar, not to mention, yeah, they are dealing not only with all this flooding, with all this situation there, but also what happened to people in the camp and what happened with the Rohingya population in Bangladesh for now. So yes, so study from the UN, UNICEF, WHO, and Plan International in the UNGA basically just really presenting about this halting lives. We speak to 7,000 girls in 14 countries, and the finding is more or less the same as what we already heard. So really very important to really address this issue, and we need to walk the talk. And collaboration is become important. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Well, you're adding some of the causes. Actually, the second question that I would like to dig deeper is what causes violence against the children to increase in a pandemic situations. Fatima already mentions about because of the lockdown, and then people could not go anywhere, and then because of that, because living in the refugee situation with you cannot go nowhere, and then the pressure is there, and then also Samira even well, it's similar with Fatima says, that because of economic pressure, that they really do something that bring the violence back home, and also the children is becoming the most vulnerable persons that can be affected by this violence, and they are also something that they felt like the easiest way out is to do the child's marriage, and of course what Fanda says, adding with that with the internet or digital gadget that we use, and sometimes could create more problem than solution, and others. What, however, we would like to hear, I mean, I would like to dig deeper. What causes violence? Of course, economy, lockdown, and then also this. Yes, please share your experience whether this is true or not. If it's because, I mean, we want to dig deeper, not just economy, not just lockdown, not just pandemic, but because there's probably an underneath of our ways of thinking, and then our ways of family, and then bring up children is really based on our cultures that is I should sensitively say could create more damage to the children than uplifting them to help them to develop their capacity. Samira, could you answer that please first, and then after that Fatima?
Yeah, sure. As you know that in Afghanistan, culture barriers are a lot, and like child marriage is one of the culture. Like it's the in culture to have an early marriage of the girl, because they just don't trust the girls because of the sorry, because of the culture. They try to just send out their daughters to another home. The responsibility toward my goal. And as I said, that 60% of girls are out of school from 3.7. So it's also due to the culture barrier, because they are not willing to send their children or daughters to schools. It's also a culture barrier. Like in most of the area, the violence against girls are more than the other boys' child. The girls are more vulnerable to these all the challenges, to all the violence. As Wanda mentioned, that beating them, working them, that you are not going to school, now you have to work. Even though we have lots of girls out of school, but those girls that they are already had access to education after this pandemic, when they were at home, the physical violence increased. And these all are related to culture, because from the religious side, it's not like there's nothing to say that you have to do these things against your children, because they are not aware of the child rights, and they are like putting the priority to the culture rather than religion. They are not like they are saying that it's our culture, we have to do these things, but it's not in their religion, even not in Islam and Christianity. And any of the religion, there is nothing like this, but people are more giving value to their culture, to be not letting these things that your daughter is sitting here in your home, you have to she has to marry. So these are the things that there is in place. And after the COVID-19, like during the COVID-19, these things are increased more.
Okay, thank you. Fatima, could you add on or from a different perspective in terms of cultures that could really, well, not just endorsing, but also creating this problem to children, especially girls, as victims of this economic crisis or pandemic crisis?
Yeah.
Okay, your video. Fatima? Could you turn on your video?
Hello?
Yes, I can hear your voice, but not your video. Unless because of the connection is not good, it's okay for you not to turn on your video. Go ahead and just. I can hear your voice at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
Good, yeah.
As other colleagues mentioned, unfortunately, particularly for our clients and Afghan community, which are mostly our clients in Iran, this situation affected very high because in some reason that's COVID crisis push and push this situation. For example, less education in their family, traditional customers is available for family, and even recently, in some recently months after COVID-19. We have some experiences from families in different places in area. For example, that to force marriage. In some cases with family, because majority of them complain about the economic situation, and some other leave their traditional culture, and we cannot, maybe sometimes we cannot work anymore. But in some cases, particularly in documented person, we have, for example, we have tools, sometimes treat them, we can complain, or we can send a letter to Iranian police and complain against you because early marriage is prohibited in Iran, and in some cases we succeed, and in other no. This issue is unfortunately, for example, maybe related to some ethnic in our clients, in Afghan people, for example, maybe Pashto ethnic is this kind of issue is higher than other ethnics, and majority of them living in marginalized area with less access with them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for yeah. Of course, we realize that some cultures, or your wording, or ethnic or tradition is something that can make the things worse in this pandemic. Panda, one of the four violence that you mentioned is neglecting the child, or negligence. Is negligence is also part of, well, just creating more of the violence, because children are being neglected is sometimes it's, well, they are not worthy enough to decide in the family decision-making process. Could you explain more about the negligence, neglecting the child?
Thank you, Pak Victor. I think the host need to offer me to share my video. I think it's been a cover from their side.
Okay.
Yes, Pak. I think in terms of neglect, yeah, when we are talking about neglect and relate with the violence against children, there are a few examples. So number one, for example, when we during the pandemic, there are some children, they have their caregivers, either their parents or their babysitter. And for example, when the babysitter have confirmed positive, and then they have to be separated by with their caregiver, with their babysitter, for example. And at the same time, the parents basically need to go to work. So then the children been maybe stay alone in their house, or maybe given to their grandparents, which is they are not used to it. So in that sense, in addition to that example also of neglection, it could be relate with discrimination. It could be relate with COVID-19, that the family is not getting stigmatized by the community. So for example, maybe before they get confirmed, they still able to go play around in their neighborhood, but then suddenly they have to be stay at home in their specific room, and only meeting with their parents during lunchtime, because they need to be separated, no, as part of the health protocols. There are other things also relate with intimidation that they can able to receive. So neglect meaning that the children been not with the parents or not with their caregivers, and also sometimes because of the, again, relate with the economic impact. So they've been taken out from their routine, right? They usually go to school, they have their friends, and suddenly they've been neglected. They've been just alone by themselves, and there is a lot of it is connected one to each other.
Yes,
basically.
you mentioned about internet violence. That
Yes.
means they are being neglected by their parents because they don't take care of the children. They let them children do whatever they want. Is it part of negligence?
For some point, as long as the children is not being surrounding by caregiver, by adult, not under supervision. I mean, that's a very simple of looking into it. But neglect per se, I mean, it could be also go into deep into relate with stigma, relate with discrimination, intimidation, that for example, when a children also been neglect, especially in the refugee context, right? When they separated by with their parents at their hometown, and then the children is basically in the camp, and
Okay.
nobody is taking care of the child. So it could be another example how it could happen. And the restriction of movement, you mentioned in the beginning about how they flee from home. Some children are basically alone, without any supervision from the adults. Yes.
Yeah, that's creating more violence actually. Yeah, thank
Correct.
you. I'm so glad to hear from Fatima and Samira that despite cultures could be the one that creates more violence, but you still say positively about religion. That's a good thing, because well, there have been a discussion that if religion is not a problem, it's a solution, or vice versa. It's if religion is not a solution, it's then a problem. So in the fourth, in the third questions, what efforts are meant to reduce violence against children? Does anything could give a way to find a solution, especially from a religious perspective on your area, which we realize that it is not easy, or any other way that you could explain? I would like to address this first to Fanda, because from the regional perspective first, and then after that Fatima and Samira could answer, because this is a good thing. If the culture, we live in a broken world, the cultures is probably different, and then because of the stresses, of course the cultures is neutral, but it could be positive, it could be negative. And then what really what efforts are made to reduce violence against children? Fanda, could you explain from the regional perspective first?
Okay, thanks, Pak Victor. I think, there's already a lot of effort. I might start with, bringing the connection from the previous discussion. I think collaborating with the religious leader, community leader become a key, because I believe, yes, culture, religion can have giving some influence, but the education and access of the information to those leaders, either it is from any kind of from priest, from imam, intentionally to do that, but because they don't know, so they continue to keep it the practice for sure. So it has become important to collaborate with them. In Plan International, one of our effort is basically to strengthening community-based child protection committee. And again, this is basically a member of the community. So it's not always the solution coming from our end as an NGO, as a donor. No, it's supposed to coming also from the community. The second one is involve the children itself. We're not always able to see them as a victim. We have to see them as part of the solution. And of course, age matters. No, we will not asking the 5 years old a child, girls to be part of the committee. No, so it need to be age appropriated as well. So involve them. And there is a lot of example in Plan International during COVID-19 how we work collaboratively with the children at the becak, like tricycle, and then they giving information about what is COVID and how to prevent and etc. And also even relate with child marriage, and also how to save using internet. Indonesia also the same. The third point is related with education. As we mentioned, one of the cause is children drop school or they have to learn online. How many children able to access distance learning properly? So we need to making sure also that the access to distance learning, not only using internet, but is there any other alternative, low tech, affordable? So like radio programming or even using handy talkie, that's kind of thing. So again, working with the education a practitioner and the campaign and then case management when relate with sexual violence, emotional abuse, making sure that there is a very clear child helpline, gender-based violence helpline. Then the caregiver or the people who working in it been trained as well how to deal, how to provide psychosocial support. And last one, I think for me, is parenting, Pak. Parenting is become important. We need to work with parents to ensure that they know what are the rights of the child and how they're going to able to take care, and provide basically support to making sure the economic of the parents are still running. So cash voucher assistance, economic empowerment need to also been done. And Plan International done it in a number of our country offices. Yes.
Okay. Well, for sure. I'm sure that Samira and Fatima could confirm this, because at least three things that you mentioned, Vanda mentioned, that could happen. The efforts is of course a community-based effort, and that also could include religion. Make this thing, especially in involving religious leaders, cultural leaders, and then the children themselves. Please, Fatima, if you could share.
Yeah, it is very important. Not only family raise their awareness and education. It is very important to some child street and child labor. Municipality and social services organization have responsible in this regard to recognize this kind of children with their family and support their family and concentrate their support, not only the children, even the family, because they believe if we support family, family can, fortunately, the base on the problems is economic and culture and cultural. And just we at this moment with less access to international
of Islam, that what Islam says, that what's the child rights in Islam and what's the rights of the girls, what you have to give them. So we also worked on the teacher training manual that we included beside the pedagogy part of the teacher training. We included the child protection and like social support, and then DRR, that through these we are just giving the training to teachers, and then we have SMC training, like training to show us that they are from the community. And these all are the information or the manuals that we are providing to the community, to the remote community. And they are like, we have seen or noticed some changes in community. Even in some part of Afghanistan that I'm implementing the project, one of the teacher, it was a female teacher, she was a female teacher and she resigned. And the community leader couldn't find any other female teachers to provide the other children, like the girls. So he said to our organization that if you cannot provide the transportation cost, I will hire one teacher from the center. So he, from his pocket, provided transportation costs to the teacher and brought her from the center of the Kandahar province to her community to teach their daughters. So slowly, like it's not that easy to change the mind of the people that they are already illiterate, they are not educated people, and they are living in very stress of economy and poverty. So it's not much easy. So we are doing these all through the campaigns, to the different programs, and as a education manager, we are doing these, and the child protection actor doing through other different activities, that how they can bring the changes and behavior and information from the perspective of Islam. And these are the things that we are doing.
Okay, good. Wow. This is really an effort that crafted, not just crafted, but integrated religion in the modules that you could reach out to the people. This is a very non-traditional effort that sometimes an NGO try to put a space with religion, but actually religion is a part of the solution. Thank you for explaining from your context. I would just keep the fourth question as the last of our discussion. At the moment, I would like to open up a question and answer session. And the first one comes from Suhaila Nuri from Afghanistan. Actually, she's my colleague from years ago, and then I didn't realize that you are relatives from Samira. The question is, Ms. Fahima mentioned that huge number of children are trafficking from Afghanistan to Iran. So this is for you, Ms. Fatima. You mentioned that the huge number of children are trafficking from Afghanistan to Iran. So this happened even in COVID-19 pandemic situation too? What was the reaction of the Iranian government towards those trafficking children? Okay, you could answer this.
Yeah, this situation is not new. Unfortunately, maybe recent years, it's better. Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Is higher recent years, since 3 or 4 years ago. But unfortunately, during the COVID-19, regarding to Afghanistan situation, this situation is the number of the number of children is high, and this one of our main concern, unfortunately.
Okay, all right. Well, there's another question from Rahmat Taufik. He said, correct me if I'm wrong. This is to all the panelists. To ask or pushing children working is part of exploitation, which is not right under this perspective. How about Malala, Pakistan, or Greta Thunberg, who is now also working to the campaign with their own subject? Is that kind of the pushing children to work? Okay, who could answer this? Fanda first, and then Samira.
I know that Pak Victor going to ask me first. Thank you, Mas. What's the question? Mas Rahmat. Interesting question, and it's not easy also to answer. For me, we cannot push children to work, because again, as you rightly mentioned, it is part of exploitation, and we basically try to work to address violence against children. What Plan is from Plan International experience and our practice, we are not pushing children. We work collaboratively with children, and I already mentioned, I mean, age appropriated as well. That's why there are number of stages, steps that we are doing. There is this ladder of participation of children. It's 11 ladder of participation of it, and then from just like bringing children as a tokenism, like be there but not really as what he want to do or she want to do, up to really empowered. So a plan, I mean, we are trying to really walk the talk and making sure it is part of empowerment and not kind of like pushing. That's number one. You mentioned about Malala and Greta. From my personal point of view, not bringing any of my organization, from me, I think what happened with them, they are bringing their own case first. I mean, it is coming from them. Malala been shot in Pakistan when she is really campaigning for education. The same with Greta Thunberg. She the one, what I read from the book, because I read her book, that it is based on her intention, her perspective, want to do that campaign, and then how many times that she is alone in the front of the office building in Sweden, and then suddenly it become a movement. So I think I see Malala and Greta is not part of exploitation, but it is coming from their way as a child, as a girl, to come to see what they can contribute to the subject, to the education for Malala, as well as on the climate crisis for Greta Thunberg. And I think now when they become bigger, for me, we have to blame the adults who try to politicize it, but not them themselves. That's from my personal point of view. Over.
Okay, Samira, is there anyone that's something like that in your area?
Well, as Wanda said, that we are not trying to push children to work, but regarding the Malala, it's like we are always trying to motivate children to take part in positive activity, but that doesn't mean that we are pushing children into work. It's kind of that every human being should take part in some good things, like climate change, that she is doing campaign for that, or Malala is doing campaign for the education. And currently, like most of the least developed countries, like Afghanistan, Pakistan, they are receiving the fund under the name of Malala. And she is working for the girls' right and the girls' education rights. So this is something positive, and she is doing her efforts. And this is something positive that we should appreciate. And it's not that pushing her to work. It's a different than pushing children to work, and it's a kind of exploitation. So these are my thoughts. I don't know if Fatima and other colleagues have any thoughts.
Okay. Well, Fatima, do you have anything to say about this question? Fatima? Okay. Well, actually, okay, now you.
Hello.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, sorry. My colleagues mentioned very well about this very important issue. I think awareness and informations for children to know about their responsibility and their situation is not working, but is very good values in society. And I think the question is the main question is a very controversial question. And we cannot compare Malala's working and Malala's activities with thousands of children have to work in the street in very unstandard and unfair situation.
Okay, yeah, it's correct, because we just cannot compare them just because they work for values, and they work force child labor. We have heard from South Asia, or from the conflicting area, from Southeast Asia. I would like to ask at least some opinions from the Far East, from Japan. I saw that here Takeshi is here. If you could say something, whether children in Japan or in other area of East Asia also well, experiencing the same problem. Takeshi, are you there? Yes. Okay, you could share what happened there.
Yes, Victor. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Nice
Sorry,
to meet you here in the webinar.
Yes, thank you very much. And thank you very much for sharing all the experience and the work that you do and the issues that children are going through. I think in many parts, including countries like Japan, there are significant consequences to to the to the children in terms of their opportunity for education being stalled, and you know, the relative poverty is also an issue in a society like this also. So some families can afford having this online environment for children so that their education don't get disrupted, but not everyone can do that. So the gap between the rich and poor has significant consequence to how much education children can receive during this time. In addition to that, there are heavy stresses among the adults. So that's what we also hear on the news, that I haven't really seen the official statistics so far, but the reports of violence within the household is also becoming an issue. So I think the issue is quite complex, but no doubt that the children in this part of the world is also being affected quite heavily.
Okay. Well, has affected all children in all countries, and then violence is escalating both in the family, or even because of the school lockdown situations and in the society. And more so, we are now thinking about how in this discussion, how we could really fight for the solution. And therefore, the last questions that I would like to ask each one of the panelists. This is a very important question, but please just answer it in 2 minutes each for the most. What are the challenges in reducing violence against children? If you could suggest, all the audience, what are the challenges? Because if we don't know the challenges, of course, we don't know how to do things, or how to or at least develop some efforts. So please do share in 2 minutes for the most, each participant, whoever would like to start first. What are the challenges in reducing violence against children? Fatima, okay. If you are ready. What are the challenges? Fatima? I can hear your voice, but not.
Yeah, I'm here.
What are the challenges?
I'm here. I think, as I already mentioned, I think less education and for the community is very important. For example, if you look at two different gap between child situation in, for example, North country with South countries, you can find different and big gap between education and education system that how cover mostly provide education facilities for children, even forced education for poor families or some families that have no any responsibility for their children. And also, I think the rule of systemic protection for children is very important in the country. For example, if any standard and any systematic protection system there was or there is, can look at the situation, the children's situation very well. I think all of them may be related to each countries. For example,
Go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, yeah, I'm here.
For example, develop and the situation of the country to development situation, gap between the development standard is very important to talking about the children rights or children's situation in their in that country, that is well or worse.
Okay. Yeah. How about you, Samira or Fanda?
Well, in context of one the biggest challenge is that we cannot decrease the violence against children is the insecurity, and second part the poverty, and the third the displacement and lack of education among the people. Maybe we are like all the national and international partners are trying to somehow decrease or reduce this violence, but the insecurity, the poverty, and from other hand decreasing in the humanitarian fund or assistance of Afghanistan is also made a challenge to not come over of these all to work for the children's rights. These are the things in my country that prevent departments to work with children.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, Fanda.
Yes, I'll second Samira is basically relate with the funding as well. I mean, from the regional perspective, and we one of the challenges to making sure that the law, policy, and regulation relate with protection to children need to be implemented accordingly. It's not only on the paper, but the duty bearer have to be responsible in implemented that. Second one, I think on funding, GHRP, the Global Humanitarian Response Plan for COVID-19, even it's just like 20% been funded. So there is a challenge on making sure that the protection services should be funded adequately as well as resources, and we will not able to do that if we don't have the funding, even for international NGO. So that's the biggest challenge, I think.
All right. There is one question actually that I would like you to address this. Shares views on possible opportunity for universal social protection and preparedness for all children in Asia Pacific. Anyone would like to answer this? Possible opportunity for universal social protection and preparedness for all children in Asia Pacific. Who would like to answer this?
I might start very briefly. I think for that one, yeah, it's also something that we consider in Plan International, again, with our latest research on halting lives impact towards girls. Social protection become one of the things that we are considering and then putting there. It is relate relate with the livelihood and making sure that there is a increased access of cash as well as food and others means of capacity that the parents will be able to have in order to help the children, and it might be able to reduce the violence against children. Preparedness always becomes something that become essential and important, and again it will need to relate with the policy and regulation as I mentioned before. So again we can able to provide insight, input, but again duty bearer will be the one who making sure that it is being regulated accordingly and also being funded.
Yeah, so advocacy is the keywords of this. Of course, in funding and then also influence, and to handle or tackle all the challenges that has been mentioned by Fatima, by Samira, and by you, Fanda, because it's a challenge of education, it's a challenge of poverty, it's a challenge of cultural negligence, and all other things that could really create or reduce the quality of children's life in our world. Of course, time is running out, and then I would like to ask each one of you, starting from Fanda, and then Fatima, and then Samira, to provide us with a closing statement that could really energize us to really do something on the children violence. Okay.
Thank you, Pak Victor. Two things from my end. Number one, COVID-19 must not compromise the commitment to protect children. That's number one. And it cannot also compromise the progress that we already gone so far for child protection progress in Asia Pacific and in the world. The second one, the protection needs of children have to be at the center of COVID-19 response adequately, so it can be able to reduce the risk for that in the future, for the best interest of the child. Thank you very much.
Okay. Wow. All right. Good words. Fatima or Samira, your closing statement, please.
From my side, as I know that in context of Afghanistan, children are more vulnerable. So we really should care and we should really advocate for the child rights as due to the cultural barrier, due to lack of awareness among people that they do not have how to care for their children. So we should really more do the focus on the child protection awareness among the communities that they are really far away from the information and the
in our clients, refugees and asylum seekers and migrants, children, is very important to know these issues. Refugee issues is not national responsibility. In all aspects and all dimension is international responsibility and needs to global solidarity, including child protection or refugee child protection. And in this regard, I'm proud to know in Iran we do very, very well, and other my colleagues in NGOs, in government or public institute concentrate very well to child refugee, but it's not enough because unfortunately their problem is very high, and maybe we can solve a part of their problems. And finally, I think is burden sharing in this issue is very, very important.
Okay, wow. Burden sharing is very important. And of course, this closing statement is wrapping up all our discussion because, well, the good thing is that all of your closing statements are very, very strong ones because we know that we could not work by ourselves. And despite the worsening condition of children as a vulnerable group in the middle of conflict and domestic violence because of COVID-19, we can really try to handle this with care. We can, as Tommy firstly says, we can do in the collaboration to do the child protection and never COVID-19 pandemic situation, reducing our commitment to child right and child protection. So our discussion regarding children as a vulnerable group in the middle of conflict and domestic violence in COVID-19 pandemic situation are finishing, but we bring home all of the things that we have been shared. Please handle with care these things. Children is our future, and despite they are become the most vulnerable group that can be victimized during this stressful condition of economics, and then a very difficult situations of health pandemic, and more so the society that could probably neglect them, even from the national or provincial or even district level, and even to the family level could neglect them as part of the solution. But children could always need to be heard their voice. They are not just the victim. They are not just vulnerable, but they could be the one that can have their voice. And because of that, I would like to finishing this up with one word by Eglantine Jeb. Sorry to say this because she is the founder of the Save the Children, but this is something that she says that I would like to share. Every generation of children, every generation, this is of children's over the mankind the possibility of rebuilding his rule of a world. We believe this. We believe that the children's, they are the one that can really make us learning about what is the possibility of rebuilding our world who is ruining by the pandemic, and the economics is getting worse, and everything else is getting worse, but we still have hope with the children through some of our collaboration. May it be NGOs, may it be government, may it be religious group, may it be any one of us. Let us work together and let the children offer us the possibility of rebuilding his ruin of a world. Thank you so much. I hand this over to Dear, and then we are so glad to have you, and thank you so much, Fatima and Samira. Thank you, Fanda. Thank you for everyone who would like to be in this discussion. Dear, this is your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Victor, for moderating the session, and thank you also
Thank you very much.
Kafanda, Fatima, and then Samira, and also Takeshi, the one who contributed at the last time asked by the moderator. And also thanks to all the attendees that have submitted their questions. We value so much your participation this time, and then your question really enriched our discussion. Also, I would like to apologize for those who are watching the YouTube. For some technical reason, the connection is not really going great, but we will ensure you can watch the replay after this with better connection and better video. And also, actually, Pak Victor, there is one question left from Human Initiative YouTube from Pak Alex Stefanus Ginting. I must mention this. His question is what the major solution in education for study children at this time. But unfortunately, because we ran out of time, we cannot really answer this question. But hopefully, if one of the panelists can visit Human Initiative YouTube and then look up the question, perhaps you can also join us in answering this question. I think that this question will be great if one of you can answer that, and also to all of you who are the expert on this question. So thank you very much for all your participation. We really appreciate your time, your contribution, also your thinking. And also I would like to remind that this is the webinar series. This is the third one. So the fourth one, or the next one, we will have on 28th of October 2020 at the usual time, 1 to 3 p.m. GMT+7 or Jakarta or Bangkok time. The discussion that we will bring is the maintaining accountability in the humanitarian response during pandemic. This is really an interesting topic, I guess. So please, everybody, if you have interest in this topic, you can join us in this webinar. And also you can suggest whether you think from your side, from your organization, you have somebody that is very well experienced in speaking of that topic. So please feel free to contact us. I guess all of you have already received the contact persons or the invitation before this webinar. So you can contact either Rita Takuri from ADRN or Halida from Human Initiative. Either one of them will help you to connect to us, the organizers. So yeah, that's all from our side. So we really thank you on behalf of the organizations, Human Initiative, Humanitarian Forum Indonesia, ADRN, and ICFA, and also from the Save the Children Indonesia, Plan International, Asia Pacific region, HAMI, and ALLOHA, who are really generously supporting this webinar. We really thank you for this productive session, and we hope to see you all in the next webinar, where we can discuss and create more a dialogue platform to CSOs in the region. Also thank to the two sign interpreters, Mbak Mada and Mbak Yulina, who you are really, really great. I know that it is not easy to translate from English to Indonesian and then to sign language. Yeah, but you're doing great. So thank you very much for your help. Okay, so thank you all of you. I guess see you next time on the next topic on 28th of October. Hope you have a good day. Stay safe, stay healthy, wear your mask, and then wash your hands and keep the social distance, and always love each other. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For the moderator, panelists, Pat Tommy, thank you very much also, Pat Tommy.